Hey there, internet friends, and welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions of the thing. This show is made possible entirely by the support of our patrons over at patreon.com/thatnerdysite, so we give a shout out to all of them. If you like the show and you can support us over there, we would definitely appreciate it, but if not, no big deal. The fact that you're here and listening is awesome, and of course we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me today we have Logan Wilkinson back. How you doing, Logan?
I'm doing wonderful. It's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure having you on. And today we are talking about The Luck of the Irish, the classic Disney Channel original movie, largely because obviously we're recording this on the 18th, so yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, and I figured it would make sense for this week's episode to do kind of a St. Patrick's Day themed thing, especially because as has become kind of the tradition the last couple of years, our episode of That D Plus Show on Darby O'Gill and the Little People just does gangbuster numbers on St. Patrick's Day as people go to YouTube and just search for that. And so we had like another few hundred people. So I figured, next year when the time
get
comes
that
around,
SEO bump, yeah.
Exactly. We'll get that SEO bump and have a whole bunch of people looking for the Disney Channel original movie, Luck of the Irish, on YouTube and finding this episode then. So if you're finding this in 2022, welcome. This was our plan. Mwahahaha.
Hopefully it's better.
Yeah, hopefully it's hopefully it's a good episode. If not, go get Disney Plus. That's where you can watch Luck of the Irish legally and stuff, and not try and bootleg it here on YouTube.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's kind of like why I picked it, and also it's one I picked. So I picked it. And when I floated the ideas in our Slack chat, it was basically this, or I was gonna do like one of the Irish or one of the St. Patrick's Day episodes of The Simpsons, because The Simpsons has been on for 31 seasons or whatever, and there's just a crap ton of things I can always slot them in if I need to. But Logan reached out and was like, yeah, I can make it work. I can sit down and rewatch Luck of the Irish, and it's also one that, especially as I was going through and watching it, I'm fairly certain I've never actually watched this one. So I want to throw it to you, Logan. What is your history with Luck of the Irish?
The Luck of the Irish is one of those movies that when I instinctively think of Disney Channel original movies, I think of this movie, right? It is in that mix. It's in kind of peak Disney Channel original movie era for me, right? So like beginning with some of my prior episodes I've been on, right? Like Phantom at the Megaplex, Mom on a Date with a Vampire. Vampire? I'll never remember it. Through like Halloween Towns and like Xenon, and like Luck of the Irish and all that kind of stuff are all like kind of that peak like 96 to like 2003, 4 kind of at the latest end of it era of Disney Channel movies like that I instinctively think back on.
Yeah, it definitely falls in that camp of like early Disney Channel original movies back.
Brink,
I mean, obviously Brink is one of the big ones we've done. Like Johnny Tsunami is certainly another one I think of. Like I remember Luck of the Irish being a thing. I just didn't watch it. So the history of that is originally this released March 9th, 2001. So they were clearly going for the St. Patrick's Day bump of that year. And yeah, so I would have been I would have been a sophomore in high school basically when this came out. So I was probably just I had probably just fell a little bit outside of watching Disney Channel original movies and stuff like that, and just never, like, because it would have been such a holiday-centric one, I would have had to, like, actually be really paying attention to Disney around St. Patrick's Day every year when it would come back around, and I just wasn't. So yeah, it's one that, like, I've seen, I've seen the kid with the ears and all that stuff all so many times over the years, and I feel like I'd even seen like clips, like I'd seen the mom doing the step dancing and stuff like that, but yeah, I just had never actually sat down and watched the movie until this go around. So yeah, it was an interesting one. It'll be an interesting kind of I think dichotomy between like your perspective of how it holds up versus my perspective of how it holds up.
I agree.
But other notable releases we had at the time, so like I said, this came out March 9th of 2001. On February 23rd, Monkey Bone, which I only pull in here because Logan and I had talked about that on a recent episode of That Nerdy Site show back when I rewatched The Mummy recently.
Right.
Brendan Fraser kind of making an appearance there. Memento, which would have been my first introduction to Christopher Nolan, came out March 16th, so the week after this. And Spy Kids came out that same weekend, March 18th. So that's
Spy Kids 1 is a lot of fun.
Yeah, the original Spy Kids with a great turn from Alan Cumming.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah. This has a runtime of an hour and 26 minutes. And in the Disney Channel original movie timeline of things, you had Xenon the Sequel kicked this year off January 12th, 2001, which is like of the ones on here, I know I watched that one. Then you had Motocrossed came out February 16th, which is the one basically directly preceding this one.
Still a good movie.
After this, you had Hounded came out April 13th, then Jet Jackson the movie came out June 8th.
Shout out to Jet Jackson.
Putting it all kind of in that timeline. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing Jet Jackson because I had enjoyed the TV show, the famous Jet Jackson, in this era. But yeah, Motocrossed and Hounded, obviously Motocross, I can tell you it's about motocross bikes, I'm guessing, but I couldn't tell you what Hounded was about at all.
Biker. It was a little bit like She's the Man, I think. Like she covered for her brother who got injured or something like that, I think was the premise. I remember all those movies except for Hounded. Again, this is peak. This is when I was watching pretty much everything was on digital movies, unless it just looked terrible. Probably like Hounded. No offense, Hounded.
Yeah. The roll call. Who's who? We have a returning director here in Paul Hone is the director of this one. Prior to this, he had directed a handful of Nickelodeon shows like Kids Incorporated, Roundhouse,
I see what he's returning from.
Which are definitely things I remember growing up. In particular, Roundhouse, I remember being Roundhouse was basically the prequel to All That, in that it was a sketch comedy show, but it was a sketch comedy show in this vacant warehouse kind of setting. It was very weird, but I have a distinct early 90s memory of that. He also had Secret World of Alex Mack. He did a handful of episodes for, and then he is returning here for Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off, which he would do a year or two after this one, which of course was another one of our very early episodes of that E+ show.
That was one of the death kneels of my time with Disney.
Yeah. Frank Bazzani here from That Nerdy Site, a huge Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off fan. And then in more recent years, he directed the Zombies and Zombies 2 Disney Channel original movies, and those are zombies spelled out a la cheerleader style, I guess. But yeah. The writers here, you had Andrew Price and Mark Edward Edens. Andrew Price, prior to this, his biggest thing was Star Trek Voyager. He had written a few episodes of that. But he also wrote on a show called Remote Control, which is another one I remember I have a very vivid memory of it, even though I didn't watch it all that much. But this was a game show on MTV in the late 80s, early 90s. It was, I think, notably Colin Quinn's kind of breakout role. I remember more so playing the NES game based on Remote Control. It was basically a trivia game show where guys were watching TV or something like that and choosing, I think, TV trivia channels with their remote control, and they would be asked questions and stuff like that. Very, very 80s, 90s MTV kind of weird show. And then he years after this went and wrote on a handful of episodes of Jeopardy. Thought that was an interesting pull, but other than that, very vacant kind of IMDb.
The Real Ghostbusters had 10 episodes.
So Mark Edward Edens is the other writer here who had a much more kind of pronounced career here, especially leading up to this. He wrote 10 episodes of The Real Ghostbusters, as Logan pointed out there, as well as 7 episodes of the 90s Ninja Turtles show. And then most notably, he developed and wrote on a lot of the X-Men animated series.
76
he's one of the co-creators of that. So 76 episodes credited on that one.
I'm looking ahead of the star, and
The starring here, you have Ryan Merriman here as Kyle Johnson, who prior to this had done Smart House.
That's where I was trying to place him the entire movie. The entire movie was like, I know this kid, and I didn't Google it because I know the segment's going to happen, and I like to make it a surprise. The whole movie was like, where the fuck do I know this kid from? What movie? Okay, good.
Smart House, he was I think the younger brother in that or something. That's another one. Like I've seen Smart House like once, so whenever we eventually do that one here on that D Plus show, that'll be another one to just be like I remember Katie Seagal in that one, and that's it. And like
Smart
I remember her as the house.
Is really interesting because whenever Entertainment Weekly did their ranking of like every single Disney Channel movie, spoiler alert for the list, go read it, give them the click, but like they had Smart House at number 1. And I remember reading that being like, okay. And like, I've even like talking to friends of ours in the industry, like, I feel like people have fonder memories than me and my sister ever did. Like, I remember like watching Smart House and being like, okay, yeah, like that was fine. It was kind of like, kind of dark, I guess, and like whatever. But like, I wasn't into it. Like, it's not in like my like Holy Trinity or like Mount Rushmore Disney Channel movies. And then I see EW out here being like, it's the best. And I'm like, is it though?
I mean, it's always subjective. Like, all those lists are always, like, ridiculously subjective.
List ranking 120 Disney Channel movies.
It definitely skews towards, like, the ones that you're going to enjoy the most are probably the ones that, like, you're most nostalgic for and, like, you know, hit during a very certain time in your life. Like, again, like Freddie's Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off that Frank really loved, and I was like, this is a terrible movie. Or Brink, you know, really resonated with a lot of us.
I mean, Brink's great. We watched it again. Brink, that holds up.
Yeah. But yeah, he's worked pretty steadily, I think, over the years.
I was gonna say 42. I saw as well.
Yeah, couple more notable things recently. He was in Final Destination 3, which is probably like one of the direct to DVD Final Destinations.
Sure.
I don't know. I've never paid too much attention to that series. But yeah, he was also in 42, the Jackie Robinson film with Chadwick Boseman, and he's like I think he's like on the team with them because he's like one of the first handful of credits on the IMDb page.
Yeah, it'd have to be.
I've only watched the movie once, and I wasn't obviously looking for him in it, so I can't I can't assign the actor name or whatever to it. But like I also think of 42 when I think of I forget the guy's name. The really terrible guy from Tokyo Drift. He's in 42 as well, and he's actually like really good in that. He's gotten
acting lessons.
He doesn't suck. So it's like, maybe he's just really bad in Tokyo Drift. Yeah. Henry Gibson here playing Riley O'Reilly. Was a regular on Laugh-In in the 60s and 70s. He was also the voice of Wilbur the Pig in Charlotte's Web, which I alluded to. I don't know if we were recording already or not, but I alluded to with Logan beforehand because, of course, Charlotte's Web also came up on the Halloween Town episode because Debbie Reynolds had voiced Charlotte on that. So I thought this was a nice like, the Charlotte's Web Disney Channel original movie verse kind of all coming together. I saw that and I was like, oh, hey, yep, because that, of course, was a very pivotal film of my childhood.
For a lot of kids, yeah.
Because it definitely got a new life when it was released on VHS in the early 90s there. He was also like the first thing that will come up as like known for in his IMDb is from Blues Brothers, where he plays the head Nazi, which is kind of a yikes thing to be to have that come up as your first choice here in 2021, but whatever. And then he was also in Magnolia and Rocket Power. The Rocket Power series.
He's
one of like
episodes,
the regular characters in there, but yeah, he's
like a recurring character.
Yeah. And he was his final role, credited role before he passed away, I believe in 2009, was on the series Boston Legal, where he was a recurring judge character across that series. A couple other characters in here that we have, the kind of the kid sidekicks. You have Alexis Lopez playing Bonnie and Glendon Chapman playing Russell. Neither of them have done too much, but I did pull in here. Alexis, prior to this, had done an episode of Even Stevens and an episode of Seventh Heaven, and then she would go on to do an episode of That's So Raven, and that was pretty much it. She kind of seems to have walked away from acting.
She's a model now. I did research on her. I was like,
okay.
where is it? Yeah.
There you go. And then Glenn Chapman playing Russell there had done a few TV spots before this as well, including also Seventh Heaven, but different episodes. And then the thing that caught my eye was he was in the movie Baby Geniuses. He plays one of the voice of one of the kids, one of the babies in that, which I just remember watching and being like, this is such a terrible movie. And then he's done a handful of projects in the years since. Marita Garrity playing Kate O'Reilly Johnson / Kate Smith. Prior to this had done Groundhog Day. It was kind of her big notable thing on her IMDb that I saw. Paul Kiernan playing the dad, Bob Johnson / Robert Smith, would go on to be in the Disney Channel original movie Double Teamed, which I would only know was a Disney Channel original movie because it has come up on this show before.
It's a good movie. It's based on a true story, I believe.
I believe it. And then lastly, the big one, the one I was excited for, and of course the one I knew Logan would be excited for, is Timothy Owenson playing Seamus McTiernan here, who, of course, best known as Lassie from Psych. I really enjoyed him also in Gallivant, the short-lived musical medieval series where he plays, I believe, the king in that. His earliest credit, though, however, was Seinfeld. He did an episode of Seinfeld back in '92. And then he would also go on, prior to kind of his big breakouts there, he was in Starship Troopers, as well as a handful of episodes of Xena, Warrior Princess, and he was a regular, I believe, on Judging Amy after this would come out. A little bit of trivia for you. One of the graphic designers who worked on the movie gave himself secret credit by adding his name into the yearbook. No idea who it was, but that's
awesome.
This was the most liked or most people found that interesting trivia bit on IMDb, so I included that, and I was like, cool. It reminds me of most recently in WandaVision, a lot of like the crew kind of worked their way into like the credits within the Wanda show credits, in fun little ways there. On its premiere, it was the highest rated Disney Channel original movie ever, and at least according to IMDb, it continues to air on Disney Channel every St. Patrick's Day. I don't know if that is still accurate, but at least when the little bit of trivia was put in here, it seemed to have been. And then actor Henry Gibson famously played a leprechaun on an episode of Bewitched some 30-odd years prior. So that was another thing to throw in his old credits, but it was just like a one-off Bewitched episode. So what do you think, Logan? How does it hold up?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it still. I think right before I hit play, I obviously saw like the actors and the playlist, and then like the runtime, and it was like an hour 26. It's a short movie. Mm-hmm. It went by fast for me, I think. If only evidenced by the fact that like I started it when I was like on my like just like on the bedroom floor, and like starting it here because I was like on my laptop and like getting ready to like, close it, and then like an hour passed and was like, I guess I should sit on the bed now. I was like so just like it was going so quickly. Yeah, I mean it's fun. It's very lighthearted and goofy. I think that the cast has fun with it. It's interesting because this is one of those digital movies like I talked about earlier where it's like ingrained in my head. Like it's one of the ones that I think about pretty early on, but how much of it I had kind of forgotten. I guess the big thing is that like I genuinely didn't know that it was the mom who was a leprechaun, right? Especially when like the dad was being like weird, like hella like, and like that was one of the notes, right? But just like the parents are hella bad, like hella weird about keeping secrets. Like, they're like the most suspicious people ever. They're like, secrets? What? No, nothing. Eat your broccoli. Pepper? And I was like, wow, okay, that's like like, they're committed to this. And so then, like, when you found, like, the photo album or yearbook, whatever, I was like, oh, it's the dad, I guess. And then you cut to the mom, and she's just like, in full shillelagh.
Yes, yeah, and super Irish.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, wow, okay, yeah. It was interesting. Like, it definitely put me on, like, a kick of, like, all right, I want to, like, Google Ireland more, and I did after the movie. But it is, yeah, it was fun. I think that Lassie's great. One of the things that I think I most find funny about the movie is I just call it, like, the Far Cry effect, where, like, I remember Lassie way more in the movie than he actually is. Where he's really only in it and like 2 scenes essentially.
I mean, yeah, basically
like,
comes back in the
character, and then the very
and then he's in the third act. Like
Yeah.
he's the third act bad guy.
And so that was being like, all right, I remember him being way more like focused in it. And then like it's this is weird to say, but like because they're leprechauns, I guess, but like the introduction of like magic, not like, oh, the leprechauns are like, you know, magic instead of like he's popping out of the pot of gold, grabbing a guy by his beard, making him disappear, and then being outside the thing, and then like we're like teleporting and shit now. In the last act of the movie was like, oh, okay, we're like committed to this, I guess. Like magic is here now. We're not really gonna ask too many questions about that.
You were perfectly fine with like little mom leprechaun grabbing keys like she's, you know, carrying like a big old backpack, but like that level of magic is really what broke you.
Yeah, that to me was like, oh, okay, this is like a whole other thing. But yeah, I mean, it was, and also the fact that like Lassie got schooled in, like the Irish Olympic Games, basically. I mean, like it was like a tie, but like you kind of like you shouldn't really tie this punk ass like junior high kid. I'd like to think you would do better than that.
Yeah, and the only things you beat him in were the things that required, you know, the strength of an adult man and not a 16-year-old kid.
That and like the race are the two things. Great job, you did it. You did amazing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was like I mean, like I guess it kind of holds up, but I definitely to the parents in the opening bit there, I was like, wow, you guys are giving off some real like America First MAGA vibes here with like. We're American. We've always been American. That's what your heritage is, American. American is great. Don't you want to be American? I was like, okay, this is a little much, guys.
It came out before, but like it definitely had the feeling of like this came out post 9/11, and again, it didn't, but like it had that energy to it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's again, I reinforcing that. Yeah, it came out, you know, March of 2001. But yeah, it was like that was definitely like this is like off-putting. Clearly something's up, but also the fact that the movie is named The Luck of the Irish means that the first act mystery of like what's his heritage isn't really a mystery. It's like we get it. I know he's Irish, like obviously that's I mean, unless you're gonna throw a real curveball in here, pretty sure he's Irish, so let's just kind of hit that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, can I also say there's also like I thought about it while it was happening, obviously knowing how the movie plays out, and then like watch the movie, it confirmed it to me for like, and also there's no reason why they could never have just said you're Irish, because if they'd just been like you're Irish, he'd have been like okay, and he wouldn't have done the rest of the shit. Like the entire movie wouldn't have happened. Like if they'd been like oh you're Irish, if they'd told him when he was like 4, he'd been like okay cool, I'm Irish. Like, and they'd be like you're Irish and like Scottish, German. Why they hid like the fathers from the shit too didn't make sense. Like you'd be like oh I just like. Talk about the dad's family. Oh, exactly. We're German. We're from Germany. We're from like anywhere other than just Ireland. If you want to hide that fact, but like you could have also told him that he's Irish, and he probably wouldn't have gone to the Irish festival because he's trying to find his heritage. It's like a weird like okay.
Yeah, I mean they definitely like really hammer home like you know how bad things were for the Irish people when they came over here, and legitimately my favorite line in the movie was when Russell's like, well, at least you guys were paid. Like just a completely like throwaway line, just completely hand washing the fact that like, you know, a presumable descendant of slaves is here listening to these people complain about, oh, Irish had it rough. It's like, that's a little,
My favorite line of that, I mean, that's a great line, is when like the main kid himself just goes like, yeah, but that was like 100 years ago.
Yeah,
exactly. Like that's my like look like as someone who's from Irish like ancestry, it's not even that far removed. It's like yeah, but like that was a while ago. Like if this movie was set in like 1920, all for it, completely down for that. But it's like in 2001, it's like that's like a lot of people. Like it's like some crazy amount. Like 15-20% of Americans can like trace their ancestry back to like Ireland. It's like. This isn't like a thing as much anymore now in 2001. Like it's a weird thing to be like, oh, we're worried about like them coming after us still. Like is the O'Reilly clan all in hiding, afraid of like what the Americans are gonna do to them still in like 2001? Because they should chill out now, man. Like They have it pretty good in 2001 America, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're like a potato chip empire magnate.
Yeah, like no one cares that you're Catholic or that you're Irish anymore in America nowadays. We have way bigger people that we hate more now. Like, it's all right. Like, you're told you've been set for like 60 years, at least since JFK became president. Like, you're pretty set.
Yeah, that was definitely something that just was like, whew, this is like it for, like, I will. On the flip side, like, the whole thing about Heritage Day, like, that was a very weird introduction to the movie because I thought it was just like, oh wow, there's a lot of racist caricatures in this audience of whatever we're looking at. Like you see this guy with like the giant like Three Amigos sombrero and just kind of a whole bunch of like costuming. Yeah, the Native American kind of doing the dance. And so I was like, man, like, I am already very uncomfortable about this. And then it's like this whole Heritage Day thing. I'm like, okay, I guess that's okay. I'm less concerned about this. But then, yeah, like, then it's like, oh, it was all a dream. And he's just very, very tiny. And it's like, what? This is a weird dream thing. But I will also say that, like, I mean, especially for, 2001, the fact that you have kind of a Latina girl and an African American boy as kind of like the sidekicks. It's like, okay, like they for a movie that is clearly like really focused on the Irish aspect, they had a good bout of diversity among their cast. I appreciated that, to offset all of the white Irish kind of characters elsewhere in the script. So yeah, those are a couple things that like really just like were my initial kind of like thoughts that jumped out. And then also, like, this kid is not a good basketball player. But clearly, like, it's so pivotal because, sports are so pivotal. So many of these early Disney Channel original movie things. So you mentioned, like, in the first scene, he, like, intercepts a pass from his, like, own teammate or something like that, you said?
It's not even that. So, yeah, the other team has the ball. Or, like, I think his team just scored, and the other team is, like, checking it in or something like that, like, making a pass to, like, another one of the other team's teammates. And so they're going – watch the video. Mm-hmm. And so, basically, they're, like, throwing the ball in, like, this direction, like, straight ahead, because that's how you make a pass. You're throwing it straight. And he, like, runs, like, slaps the ball, like, makes a block on the pass, like, max it out. Mm-hmm. And the ball, essentially, from the angle he hits it at, has to make, like, a U to go back into his own basket. That's like it happened, and I literally rewound it and was like, that angle didn't seem right, and it's not like that is like literally like physics like bend it and went like, we're gonna just make it a magnet and just go back in. And even like with the luck, I was like, yeah, but not that luck, like not that kind of luck.
Yeah, there's a whole thing with him and like the angles of things that I jotted down. Like when he is able to see things that are perfectly angled for the camera, but not at all angled for him. And like I noticed it first when he sees like the Seamus McFinnigan or whatever stuff on the bench, where he's like he's walking along and like the bench is like in a complete like 180 degree of his periphery, but he sees it and just is immediately drawn to it and knows that stuff. And then again, the book of like everything you want to know about being Irish, but we're afraid to ask or whatever, is like positioned directly facing the camera, and he like sees it from behind. It's like, hey, this is a book I should probably pick up and read. And it's like, I don't think so, man. Like that's not luck. That's just like bad direction of photography, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah,
like luck to me is like when he throws the ball backwards and it makes it in the basket. That's like, oh, it's a lucky shot. Mm-hmm. Like physics defying shots. I'm like, oh, I can read a book behind me. That's not luck. That's just like bad filmmaking. Yeah.
Yeah. I will. The basketball like faux pas that I noticed when you kind of mentioned that to me was when he's playing with Russell later in his front yard or whatever, and Russell takes a shot, like he just straight up goaltends it and like taps it into the hoop. And like they make a big deal of like, hey, you touched the rim, but it's like that was goaltending. That's 2 points for Russell right there, not you, buddy. Yeah, I was just like you guys don't know how basketball is played.
Clearly, I did want to give a shout out to him because he became one of my favorite characters. Russell's dad, who never actually gets a line of dialogue that isn't just incomprehensible screaming in the stands. Like, I kept waiting for like the moment where we understand more of his character, and like just the more we knew and the more we heard Russ talk about him, the more of an asshole he was. Like, he sounds terrible. And I was like waiting for a moment at the end where he'd be like, "Oh, like I realized I was too hard on you and putting too much like even."
Nope.
Like, we got nothing. And I kept waiting for it, and then it never happened. Like, Lizzie, I think her name was, like, she gets a moment with her dad, and he'd only been mentioned, like, once, and she got a moment. Yep. And I was like, Bonnie, thank you. And then, like, Bonnie and her, like, her dad got a moment, and I kept waiting for Russ to get a moment with his dad, nothing. And he was talked about and shown way more. We'd never seen Bonnie's dad until that moment, and he got a moment. I was like, oh, okay, I guess, yeah, like, good for that one.
Yeah, the dad gets like he gets to be proud of his son when Russell scores, a couple points in the end of the game there or whatever. And then I did like that Bonnie gets like the trade-off of like, well, she really likes basketball, so like we've got a scholarship for her, but we want our people to have a little bit, of an athletics bend. And he's like, yeah, she loves basketball, she's gonna play basketball. I was like, that's a nice little like closing of that, one line little bit of dialogue that she had as character development, but it's still character development a little bit. This also, very abundantly reminded me that Riverdance was a thing at one time. And it was like the biggest thing in the world to white people for a very flash point in time. And just was like, yep. Like Michael Flatley, I think was the guy's name. I was
going to say, yeah.
Was the big Lord of the Riverdance, Lord of the Dance.
Lord of the Dance.
And so, seeing, like, I got excited when I started watching it. I excited in, like, the loosest of finger quotes or whatever. When I saw Timothy Owenson's name pop up in the credits, I was like, oh, Lassie's in this? Cool. And then when he shows up as, like, the super Irish guy, I was like, okay, neat. I didn't pinpoint him as being, like, the big bad. So much as like I definitely thought it was like his henchmen basically were the ones that had stolen the good luck charm and stuff like that. But I appreciated that like he's the ringleader of all that. And then I absolutely loved just how super tilt they go into all the Irish stuff, and they're in the pub and they're singing all the
that scene is like one of the like burned in my mind scenes.
Yeah. And on the flip side, oh my God, the "this land is your land" bit at the end was just like super cringe. I was like, you should just stop this movie like 5 minutes before you did. Yeah. Like, let him do his Riverdance thing and then just freeze frame on that, and boom, Disney Channel original movie done. But nope, it goes full again, like you're saying, like post 9/11 almost, with the "this land is our land" kind of thing. I was just like, oh man, this is awkward. Like, especially as like. The kids up there, if it was like a thing that all the kids, for Heritage Day kind of came together and did, okay, I'll give you like the Disneyfication of that. But like the dad just getting up and singing from the audience, and then all the other parents I was just like, oh God, make it stop. Make it stop, please. No. But yeah, I like the whole thing ending on the basketball game. I was like, okay, well, they clearly had to tie those two threads together. And it was interesting because this was actually something that came up in the Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off episode, was that because Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off was like the cooking competition and the baseball game had to be like remedied and wrapped up. And I thought like those would have also like dovetailed somehow, and they don't. Like they end up being like two separate things and disparate points. So I appreciated that this like, brought it into a single plane of action, I guess, for the end. And I also appreciated the bit about the dad coming from Cleveland and, Lake Erie versus Ayr for Ireland, kind of coming back into play. It was easily very kind of like telegraphed that that's what was going to happen when Kyle makes the second bet. But it was still like, I appreciate that they set that up in the second act and then pay it off there in the finale. It was a nice little bit, getting the bad guy with his comeuppance and all that stuff.
I did wonder in that when they just have him drop in the lake. I was like, did he just drown? Because he's like a foot tall, and I was like, what? Like, how much can he swim? Like, like how strong? Like, and it's like the minute, and he also got like shot into that fucking lake by magic. And I was like, did he just get murdered? like, did this just take like a really like dark turn? Like, we just fucking killed him off. Like, he's dead.
I mean, I would guess,
and also because like the parameters of the bet, like that he even said, is like you have to be stuck in like the shore of the thing, so he can't relieve the water either.
Yeah,
and it's like, damn, like
I envisioned it with like, oh, he can like be on the beach or whatever, but he can't like go more inland. But yeah, based on what they show us, it's like, he probably gets eaten by a fish or something like that.
Yeah, it's like he's done.
They never came back with a Luck of the Irish 2 of him getting his revenge or something like that. Him tricking somebody else to make like a bet to free him from this original curse or whatever. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting one. And I was also not at all expecting him to like go like full like leprechaun, like ugly leprechaun.
Yeah.
Like with the face makeup and stuff at the end.
They had
like
makeup
I was like,
left over from
why?
Halloween Town.
Yeah, it was definitely something like that. I was like, why? Like he was like, you didn't need to make him like grotesque. He was just a bad guy enough. But okay, sure, I guess. Why not? I also appreciate, and like they don't draw attention to it really, but like I appreciate that like his minions were also there, you know, embodying all of these other kids or whatever, because you see a lot of them like running around during the shot. But also now in the wake of Wonder Woman 1984, we have to ask, you know, these kids were body snatched for a brief time, where they're gonna like, they come out, you know, Seamus gets thrown out to the lake. The kid that he was embodying just kind of like wakes up and is like, wait, like what happened? Like we lost the game? What the hell? Like, wait, our whole starting lineup like just blacked out for the last 2 hours? What?
Yeah.
Is that like
not even the last 2 hours, the last 3 minutes. Like they remembered everything, and then just boom. And for 3 minutes that are the most
the
important
end of the game.
3 minutes of the game, they all collectively blacked out. Yeah. Like that's the thing.
Yeah. As you know, the ramifications of some of these Disney Channel original movies. Yeah. You know, not the greatest. Absolutely. Did you have any other favorite moments or scenes that you wanted to kind of highlight or pull in?
I thought the chase through the potato factory was great. If only for the image of the guard putting randomly like and like I also loved the commitment to the Irish accent, everyone, and him just being like, "We've got some intruders," kind of thing, and like it was just like perfectly like done, and then just smacking a big red button for the alarm. And then the guards were like immediately there.
Yeah. That especially hot on the heels of having watched Austin Powers recently, like the corridor that like the little golf cart thing is in, that clearly that corridor, like that golf cart cannot turn around in it. Like it has to very clearly, it can only go in like one direction in that corridor. I was like, this is the dumbest hallway ever. Like why do that? Oh, because you wanted to have this like chase with the car kind of thing going forward. Yeah, it was very clearly like they found this neat location and then we're like, well, how are we gonna make this stuff work? Let's not think about it too much. Let's just like, you know, let's drive the thing in there and just like it goes straight down a hall. And they like reuse the same shot a couple times to like make it seem even longer in things. It was just like, this is like peak 90s and 2000s Disney Channel original movie kind of like
speaking
location
of
placement.
Repeating shots. One of the things I noticed, I didn't notice it at the end of the game as much, but at the beginning of the movie, the very beginning of the movie, when they set themselves up with like, there are 7 seconds left basically, go. They didn't do that thing with like they just like slowed down time. They just repeated time. Like if you can just see in the background, it goes from like 7 seconds, it'll do a shot, 5 seconds, and then it'll like go back to like 7 seconds in the background.
Yeah.
And then like 6, it's like I can just see you like adding on time to do all these shots when you could have just done this smarter. Like
it
didn't need to be done like this. Yeah.
15 seconds and then actually like
we'd have been fine. The whole scene.
Yeah, it was a rough little continuity bit there. Agreed. But hey, apparently luck also maybe involves time travel. He can already bend the physics of the ball, so why not time travel as well?
I did really genuinely really like the idea of Russ being given a lucky coin. It's not lucky, like he just needed confidence kind of thing.
Yeah.
If they didn't immediately explain that, like one day happened, they were like, "It's a fake coin," and we're just gonna say "fuck Russ" now, push him out the rest of the game. It doesn't matter anymore. It's all about you now. You don't have any luck, but like because you have, and it's like, yeah, but that makes sense for Russ, who's not Irish, but for you all. An hour and 21 minutes of this movie now has been around the fact that like luck does matter a lot. We wouldn't have any of this stuff without it. And so, no, I don't think that does work.
Yeah. It was another one that was like incredibly telegraphed. Like as soon as he gives him the coin, I'm like, okay, this is clearly like one of those like, hey, all you needed was confidence the whole time or whatever. But yeah, the fact that like all he gets out of that is one basket, and then they go back to okay, now Kyle has to save the day or whatever with his premium playing. Or it was just like it was another like just like all the stuff with his dad. It was like okay, this was a very rushed beat that like doesn't really make any sense. Like he hasn't had an issue with confidence this whole time or anything like that. So why is he now suddenly like buying into this whole thing? There was a weird bit there. I'm trying to think of any other things. Like there were just so many things in Kyle's transformation to being a leprechaun that I was just like, what, like he shows up in that like ridiculous hat where I'm like, okay, like I like having known and seen images of him with the pointy ears, I clearly know that's where we're going for this. But the fact that like his friend doesn't say anything about like, hey man, what's with the hat? Or then that he doesn't have any even reason for like wearing the hat apart from it needs to be used to cover up these features later was a different thing. As well as the fact that his hair color changes midday and like he had the hat off earlier when he's like trying to flirt with the girls or whatever, and his friend standing right there sees that he's still got his, brown or black hair or whatever, and then later when it's suddenly red, and he just kind of is like, "Hey man, nice hair color." It's like that happened while you guys were at school. When would he have done that, Russell? What there was just like stuff like that. I was just like, you didn't need to like walk into this rake, but you did. It was just kind of like they had these images that they wanted to hit, and they didn't really care about how they got there, I guess.
Yeah.
Same with the mom going super Irish. I did like the grandfather character. Like, I mean,
Henry
Gibson was great, kind of like, from the off, where like he, obviously he kind of plays that impish, mischievous kind of like, leprechaun, thing that he's doing there. I really enjoyed that. I'm trying to think. I also like, I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of like, I bet I can beat you at sports. Like, not any kind of specific sport, not the one sport that you think you're like good at of basketball. Like we'll get to that, but like sports, just this nebulous sports, and it leads into the whole like the games thing there. I did appreciate like it's a double-sided coin in that like I thought that was the dumbest thing, but I did appreciate the payoff was like, the bet was you wouldn't beat me. We tied, and so you didn't beat me. I was like, clever there, you sneaky snake man.
So that moment actually, there's that moment, and I think there's something in like Aladdin with the genie where like there's a similar thing of like the way it's worded shit are two things that like I've never forgotten, because I watched both these movies as like a child, and so like whenever I make bets now because of these two movies, I make them very clear usually, because like I'm not here to get like fucked by some sort of like supernatural deity. It's like no. Like even as a kid, I remember this is my view of religion. Even as like a 9-year-old child, I remember like seeing these two things and then like going to like mass or whatever and like doing prayers and being like, I want to make this very explicitly clear to you, God, all right? Like, this is what I want. Like, I don't want, like, any sort of shenanigans out here because you're a mischievous son of a bitch. I know it. So, like, I'm going to, like, make this, like, very clear cut because I don't want to be like, oh, I want to, like, win something or whatever, and you're going to, like, shenagle it out here. So, like, that scene I always, like, pay attention to.
Yeah, the don't fuck me rule that Kind of Funny always goes back to when they talk about like making the wishes with a genie. Yeah, I think the genie one in Aladdin is it's more Aladdin kind of messing with the genie on that one of basically like, I bet you couldn't even get us out of this cave, and then he does, and he's like, all right, you got 2 wishes to go. He's like, I didn't say I wish, and they do the same thing in the 2019 Aladdin or whatever, the Will Smith one, where they have that same beat, but they set up the rule more specifically in that you have to rub the lamp and say I wish. And the way they do it is just like he like they make a point to show him not rubbing the lamp. but he says I wish, and Will Smith gets him out of there, and then Will Smith goes and like rewinds the tape basically in the within the movie. It's just like that was a much weaker way to do that. You could have just kept it. Like, you've already kept 95% of the rest of this movie just a rip-off of the animated one. You could have just kept that joke, too. Especially because, like, later they go and do, like, completely break that rule when, like, Aladdin is drowning underwater, basically, and can't rub the lamp, can't make the wish, but, like, the genie pops out a lamp and is like, all right, I'm gonna like fudge it. I'm gonna, make this an IOU or whatever. And he creates the loophole that he didn't need to create if you hadn't set up that thing in the first place. Yeah. It's just weird stuff like that. But yeah, I did appreciate that in this one, it's obviously established that he's, a tricksy kind of liar character. So of course, like, I knew something was gonna come up. And then I also appreciate that, again, Kyle kind of turns the tables with the whole you're going to live on the on the shores of Erie like my forefathers or whatever.
Yeah.
That kind of coming back into play was him getting the one up there. But yeah, there was a lot of like just cheesy cringe stuff. And one of the notes I took on here, I think it was when Bonnie was basically like taking him to task for how bad he is at basketball now. It's like almost weirdly reminiscent of the scene between what's his butt and Gabriella in High School Musical.
Troy.
Troy and Gabriella, when like Gabriella tries to take the shot but misses, but in this instance Gabriella made it or whatever. But I thought that was an interesting kind of like parallel there. But in that scene when she's like going off about sometimes it takes hard work, blah blah blah, all that stuff, I jotted down the note like, Kyle really just has no skills or abilities. He has skated by his whole life on white privilege luck. Because that's really where I just saw, just again, like, from all the Heritage Day stuff to all of the like, the Irish had it really bad when they came here or whatever. Okay, yes, but also not nearly as bad as a lot of other people have had it. Or, in 2001, we're having it. In 2021, are having it. So yeah, it was definitely like I was like, oh, this is a weird, like, white privilege thing that kind of...
None of them are lucky, though, Trevor, all right? We can't base a basketball movie on that, all right?
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, I think those are... Oh, and also the fact that, like, he could have just river danced better. He could have out river danced Seamus in the sports off.
Oh yeah.
But instead he breakdances suddenly. He pulls out breakdancing, which we've not seen him do anywhere else in the movie. Nope. He just suddenly breakdances now. And that, like, also, like, at that point is when I was like, okay, but, like, who's judging these things? Like, this is clearly Seamus's games, and he's got all of his hooligans there. So, like, who decided, breakdancing is the one that gets the point for this one, and not the river dance that Seamus was doing?
The other ones are all like objective things, like who ran fastest, or who threw the thing furthest, or who was the most like accurate, the spear thing. Although also check the fact that like his line of like like he had some sort of weird thing about like, but we play baseball. Fucking like dead end of like, what is it? That's not how you play baseball, though.
I absolutely wrote that one down because it was like, in America, we don't believe in kings. We believe in baseball. And I was like, what? What does that have to do with any of this stuff? But also, we do believe in kings. We just don't like abide by one. But like, it's not that we think they don't exist, man.
Not even that, but like, your line should have been like, we believe in basketball. Like, that's what the line should have been. Like, it's like
exactly
the
like
sport the whole movie is based around, to say nothing the fact that, again, baseball has nothing to do with just dead ass throwing a spear like you're fucking Robin Hood and bullseyeing it. So
that one wasn't like, he says that line when he has to hit something with a bat, basically. Like, it's cricket almost, I guess. But so he is definitely alluding to, and the thing that he ends up doing is baseball-esque. But yeah, it is like when the entirety of this movie has set up that he's really good at basketball, why are we doing a baseball cutaway thing? Just like make it, a basketball he's got to shoot into a hoop or something like that. But again, then you like it would detract from the actual like final bet being the end of the game or whatever.
To say nothing of the fact that even watching it again now, when they get to like the last thing is like the Irish dance off. Watching it now when that happened is like, oh, this is where he loses, and they remake the bet, and he's like, I'll bet something different kind of thing. And I was like, he just loses what I thought. I had forgotten about like the tie thing for like in the midst of like getting caught up, even though how much I always think about it. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I guess he just loses here. And he like Lassie smashed it, crushes it, right? And then it cuts him like breakdance, whatever. And it happened, and he won. And I was like, but that's not what you were doing. Like, you were doing an Irish jig, and you just did something. Like, it's like, that'd be like me being like, all right, cool. Today we're going to paint this, like, pot of fruit. Who can do the best pot of fruit? And you paint fucking a, like, Picasso, like, abstract thing. It's like, that's not what we were doing here. Like, you did something completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. But, had to make it modern for the kids. There was also the last little beat I wanted to pull in here was during the RV chase. The music selection for that was just such a weird like ska punk choice that my note was basically like, this feels like it was pulled, like it was a leftover track from Brink is what like that song, because it had that like California surfer skater kind of like grunginess to it or whatever, and it's just like, this is a really weird, for everything else that's going on in this movie, like this is just a weird music choice, but whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and even that whole sequence going like, to the extreme of Irish, like, oh, we haven't had a corned beef and cabbage reference. Let's have that be something they throw out the window into this, the car with the top down or whatever. It's just like, oh man, this is such a weird movie.
One final thing that I literally just thought about to kind of wrap this up, but I just hit me when you kind of said that, is that, so I don't know where the movie's set location-wise. I don't know where we're at in the country. Mm-hmm. But, like, we talked about how they were in Cleveland, and then
it seemed to be still, like, somewhere around there because, like, they didn't move too far.
This is my thing. Is like, they made a whole big thing about, like, we were in Cleveland, but then we had to move, and your dad changed his last name, and we did all of these things to make sure the family couldn't find us. And then, like, the grandpa's just, like, down the street still. Like, what are you talking about? Like, he didn't do anything. Like, he's still, like, right there in a giant spud factory. Like, what are you talking about?
And a spud factory that they knew about. Like, they even say, like, we should have moved when he opened that factory here. I mean, I just write that off like they did with everything else. Like, the grandfather was just really lucky and opened up the location right where his daughter was. So he could meet his grandson and all that stuff. Yeah, it was definitely like, it was like, a little too convenient in some things like that. One of the things I jotted it down in the trivia thing, but like I didn't jot it down, but I saw on the trivia page was the super Irish fair that just happens to be in town, was filmed at like an amusement park in Utah or something like that. In Farmington, Utah is where that sequence was filmed. But yeah, the whole thing is clearly set somewhere in like the Midwest, out there in like Illinois or Ohio area. Maybe even Indiana. I don't know. But yeah. All right. Then let us dive into the report card. Let's grade this thing from A+ to F. I'll throw it to you first, Logan. What do you want to give this a grade?
I'm gonna give it if we're doing like pluses and minuses, I'll give it a B-. Despite everything we just said for 40 minutes, I still had a lot of fun. It was still like it goes very fast for me. I think it bops along really well. I have a lot of good memories of it, and like it is to me a classic. Is the movie good? I mean, I don't know. What is the definition of good? I enjoyed my time with it for an hour and 26 minutes, right? Like, it's definitely a lot of fun to, like, talk about afterwards and, like, kind of bop around on a little bit, make fun of. But, like, yeah, like, it's a B-. Like, I don't think the movie's bad. I did not enjoy my time with it. So I'm going to give it a B-.
You touch on something there that I thought of, like, almost the entire time I was watching this, of, like, this would be a really fun one to have watched, like, with us all in the same room, or even like watching it remotely, like in a a shared chat or something like that, and just like making fun of this movie as we're watching it would be a lot of fun. I mean, it's not bad, but I give it a C. It is like straight down the middle for me of just like, this isn't a good movie.
Without the nostalgia, I think it's totally fair.
If I don't have like the nostalgia hang up to this, like again, the two things that save it really are the grandpa and Lassie. Like I think they're great, but like so much of the other stuff is just like, oof. This, like even at the time, like I was thinking a lot as I was watching this. I was like, were we just really dumb as kids, and like we just let a lot of this stuff go, or just like our sense of taste isn't refined enough or whatever. So like these gags that are so much simpler, or a thing gets set up and then immediately like just called out or whatever, like the magic quarter confidence thing, like were we just dumber at the time and wouldn't have pieced that together without them spelling it out for us, or what? But yeah, I was just like going back and watching this now, I was just like, this isn't doing it for me. Like I'm it wasn't a terrible time. But it's now that I've watched it, I'm like, okay, well, I never need to watch that again. Cool. I can move on into other Disney Channel original movie things or whatever else. And hey, now we've knocked it out for next year's St. Patrick's Day. We can basically say, hey, go watch our Darby O'Gill one or our Luck of the Irish episodes of for St. Patrick's Day of next year. Extra credit, other suggestions from Disney Plus if you like this one. You have, as we mentioned earlier, Double Teamed came up. Rip Girls, which appeared to be like a surfing girls movie. I don't know. I like based solely off of the thumbnail I saw. Motocrossed, Jumping Ship, which is one I had never heard of.
Don't know that one. Yeah.
Ready to Run, which is another one. I might have recognized the thumbnail. Cadet Kelly, I vaguely remember. True Confessions, and Xenon the Sequel was the last of the recommendations there. You watching anything else on Disney Plus these days, Logan?
No.
Nope. I sat down. I watched Raya and the Last Dragon. I don't remember if I mentioned that on last week's episode. I know I mentioned it on That Nerdy Site show, but I don't think I watched it. You mentioned that
you were thinking about spending the $30 to do it.
Yeah, when we talked about Jane last week. So I sat down and actually watched that, and it's one that like I will certainly dive into more when we do a proper That D Plus show on it, whenever that may be. It might not be until like the premiere access window opens up, but I really enjoyed that. It was really good. It hit just a lot of the right moments for me. I also watched the behind the scenes making of WandaVision, which was a cool little thing. I wish it had been like a longer form thing, a la the Mandalorian making of series that they did, as opposed to this was basically like a 1 hour special featuring like interviews with the cast and crew kind of stuff. But it was still cool getting to see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff on that. And then I am very much looking forward to, I'm sure by the time this episode comes out in the morning, I will have watched the first episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier tonight when it goes live at midnight. So we are in after the drought of 2020 for MCU, we are in basically a never-ending weekly stream of 2021 MCU content. So that is exciting. We get this for the next 6 weeks. It's a nice little birthday present to me because tomorrow, or the day this episode goes live, is my birthday. So yay, happy birthday to me. And I get to spend it watching Bucky and Sam, fight over being the next Captain America. So good times there. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Logan, for joining me to talk about Luck of the Irish here. You can follow Logan at Lefty Logie. Anything you want to give a shout out to? Give some love to, Logan?
I will give a shout out to last week's episode of Jane. I thought that was really good on That D Plus Show. And I will give a shout out to That News You Care About. Me and Trevor have had a few good episodes on that lately. And then finally, I'll give a shout out to the YouTube channel over there. Trevor does lots of great work there.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, you can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I will, echo all of that really, I guess. But in particular, I really enjoyed our conversation this week on That News You Care About, where you and I talked extensively about the Xbox Bethesda kind of merger / acquisition, and I thought we had some good points that we brought up regarding all of the Bethesda stuff. So really cool to discuss that.
I agree.
So yeah, check out all that stuff. You can find all those shows at our YouTube at youtube.com/thatnerdysite, or you can go directly to thatnerdysite.com, where you can find kind of everything that we put up on the site. If you liked what you heard, once again, please like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, click the notification bells, all that fun stuff. And if you do feel so inclined, you can always support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Thank you, as always, for joining us. And as always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, and class dismissed.